All right, let's get to the Spurs roster.
Swin was a stud, man. I went to the old arena, and this is before those.
Talking about the Hemisphere Arena?
Yeah, this is before those collapsible rims that Daryl Dawkins, shattered glass, and so they came in with the giveaway rim. But I was at a game when I was 10 years old where they had to switch out the backboard because Swin Nader broke a rim with a dunk in a game.
Really?
Yeah.
I was going to look up how many or what the average was for Dennis Rodman that year, but I do know his raw statistic was he had 1,367 rebounds in an 82-game season in 93-94. He had 304 more than David Robinson's best year, which was 90-91.
Okay.
Which is just ridiculous.
What made him so? How did he? What was his technique to get so many rebounds?
Did you see? You ever see?
He was really.
You ever see Last Dance?
I never watched
the documentary. He has this really great moment in there where he's talking about how he studied the rim and what he did best, and he would like just have people throw stuff up at the rim, so he knew, okay, if it bounces here, it's going to go this way. If it bounces here, it's going to go this way. And
he anticipated
that stuff, and it was always just his effort too. Like
he anticipated the geometrics of it all.
Whenever I tell young basketball players or see young basketball players, it's like there's two things you can gauge, and it's effort and effort goes into rebounding and defense.
Yeah.
Like that's how you make yourself available and good.
He was a great
There's
effort
two
player.
things that you can do on the court and control all the time. Or actually one thing, and it translates into two things.
Dennis Rodman from?
I have no idea.
Dallas South Oak Cliff High School.
Okay.
Southeast Oklahoma
Whatever you
State.
say. All right, Spurs roster. So they're not going to get Lauri Markkanen. Sad. 5 years, $232 million, I think he just signed with the Jazz, which means he cannot be traded. And they did it after
today.
They did it today. So it was after the August 6th kind of deadline where he could have been traded during this NBA season. So he cannot be traded this NBA season. Next time we'll talk about Lauri Markkanen is going to be when the Jazz Jazz beat the Spurs at some point this year, and probably next summer.
He goes off for 35 against the Spurs.
Exactly. Because you know it's going to happen now that they didn't trade for him. He's going to go off for 40 on 1 week.
It's an interesting situation for Utah because everybody thought they were going to blow it up. Jordan Clarkson's from here. I know Jordan. And I think Jordan was thinking he was going to be pushed and moved somewhere else, that they were going to blow the whole thing up. Now they're going to try to build around Markkanen. That's going to be interesting.
But they've already blown it up once, so I kind of understand why they did this, because what are you trying to do if you're not trying to build around the players that you trade for?
They couldn't get what they were asking. Danny Ainge was asking
they were asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars.
Yeah.
Like they were literally asking for everything that you could ever get.
Yeah.
What was the asking price? 5 ones, Pajemski and Moses Moody from the Warriors, plus pick swaps?
They wanted Devin, Keldon, the Spurs #1s. They wanted those Atlanta #1s. That was just ridiculous.
They were asking for so much that it wouldn't have made any sense to trade him, because what are you going to have left if you trade for him? Like it didn't make any sense.
No.
So,
and I think they knew that nobody was going to take that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
so they wanted to kind of sign him. He wanted to be there.
Well, also, like if you don't want to trade somebody, you're always going to pick up the phone. But if you don't want to trade somebody, what do? You ask for
the moon.
way, way, way too much. And if they give it to you, then okay, then you trade them.
Yeah.
So now that we kind of know Lauri Markkanen's out of the picture, we know who's on the Spurs roster right now. We don't really anticipate any huge moves. Maybe a Keldon move comes somewhere down the line. This is probably who's going to be on the roster as we go into the Spurs season. How much better is this team right now as they were 3 months ago?
It's hard to say, because the biggest, and I've been saying this on this podcast and other places, there is no way to gauge Wemby's improvement. There's no way to know how much better he's going to be from year 1 to year 2. We don't know what Castle's going to be. We know what he looks like. And then outside of that, we know with the Paul and Harrison Barnes acquisitions that they should be a lot more responsible with the ball, a better three-point shooting team. And again, I say, if you look at their last month and 7 out of their last 12 games, I mean, they won 7 out of their last 12 games. I think if you look at that team without Paul and without Barnes and without Castle, just a team that ended the season, if you were to say next year starts now the day that season ended, I think we would have think they were a 40-win team. So I think their baseline is 40 with Chris, Barnes, Wemby's improvement, Castle. I think they're a team that could win 42, 45 games.
I think that this roster looks a little congested. And by that, I mean there's a lot of guys that play 2 through 4 and not a lot of guys that I think there's too many guys that play those positions. Castle can maybe go 1, 2, maybe 3. Paul's obviously a 1. Trey's obviously a 1. But then you have Blake Wesley, you have Devin, you have Jeremy, you have all of these guys. Keldon, Malachi, like Mamu. You have all these guys at the end of this roster in like the 7 through 12 spots on this roster that are trying to develop and trying to earn playing time, that there's almost too many of those guys.
That'll work itself out. That'll work itself out in camp, and then that'll work itself out if they want to move, like, and I've said this all along with Keldon, equal value at a different position.
Yeah, like it looks like they need a big guy to me.
Yeah, they do.
They need a big guy and they need another 3-point shooting threat.
I agree.
So who do you move in that case? Like, how does all this play out? I don't anticipate seeing that before December. Like,
well, you wait and you see what is Malachi Flynn, right? What is Trey Jones? Does it give you a chance to move Wesley?
Does Branham develop? Does Wesley develop into a better 3-point shooter?
Does Malachi is a really nice player. I like Malachi, but there doesn't seem to be a spot for him.
Yeah. Does Branham or does Vassell develop a 3-point shot that's a little bit more consistent? Like, you have to see how the guys develop. So I get that. So I feel like if we see one of those moves, this is probably the roster we're gonna have.
I still think they need a specialist, a sniper.
3-point specialist?
Yeah, like the guy that was at Memphis.
Like a Danny Green. You need or Luke Kennard.
Yeah.
A Danny Green, a Luke Kennard, a Mike Miller, Kyle Korver, any of those guys.
Who was the guy we had? Doug McDermott.
Yeah, but even he.
No, not him now, but it's that type of player.
Yeah. I was gonna say even now, like, he's not at that level. He's a tier below as a 3-point shooter.
But what about Malachi Flynn? You just said his name.
I honestly don't know a lot about him.
He scored 50 points last year.
He scored 50 against the Hawks last year.
Yeah, but he played on Detroit. So,
but you look at his full body of work. He's a former first-round pick, so obviously people thought a lot of him coming out. But then he's bounced around: Toronto, Detroit, now the Spurs. I think there was one other. He's averaged about 8 points a game. He's had a hard time sticking. He's little. He's 6'1", but when you go back and look at that tape against the Hawks, man, he's got some Iverson in him.
Between Malachi, Trey Jones, and Bouye and Stephon Castle, who do you think is going to be the one to back up Chris Paul there?
Castle.
But I feel like he's going to play more 2 than 1.
Maybe at first. That dude's the future of the Spurs at the 1. The future. Maybe not this year, but he's the future of the Spurs at 1.
I think the 40 to 45 win total that you threw out there is probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, but I thought that last year too.
Yeah, but it's a new year. It's a new year.
Can you have 2 Malachis on the same team?
They're spelled different.
Yeah, they are spelled different.
Okay, we're good then.
Yeah, so we're fine. Let's get to it.
And we got 2 Harrisons.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Both from North Carolina.
Yeah, Barnes and Ingram. Pretty sure we're not going to have 2 Wembanyamas. That would be cool. I mean, maybe in a couple years.